There is a specific type of silence that happens after the music stops. It's not a peaceful silence. It's the ringing in your ears when the crowd has dispersed, the red cups are crushed on the floor, and the adrenaline that fueled the last 4 hours begins to curdle into something heavier. In the American Pie universe, Stifler is the architect of the noise. He is the engine that keeps the chaos running. But if you look closely at the edges of the frame, past the laughter and the pranks, there is a lingering shot of a person standing alone in a room that was designed for hundreds. We remember Stifler for the energy, for the offensive charm, for the absolute refusal to let the night end. But we rarely talk about what happens when the night actually ends, because the sun always comes up, and in that harsh morning light, the behavior that made him a king at 18 starts to look different at 25. And at 30, it starts to look like a tragedy. The world moves on a linear timeline. It demands evolution. It demands that the noise eventually settles into a signal. But for the boy trapped in a man's timeline, the silence isn't a relief. It's an accusation. There is a question that hovers over every interaction when you are the one who hasn't changed. It's a question nobody asks out loud, but you can hear it in the tone of their voice when they ask about your weekend. They ask, "Are you still doing that, Tawny?" It's not a judgment of the action itself. It's a judgment of the timing. Why is recklessness charming in high school but concerning in adulthood? At what exact hour does the fun guy become the sad guy? The world operates on an invisible schedule. There are milestones, careers, marriages, mortgages, that act as checkpoints. When you miss one, people notice. When you miss three, people worry. When you miss them all because you are still trying to recreate the glory of a summer party from a decade ago, people stop worrying and start pitying. And that is the most isolating feeling of all. To realize that while you were busy being the life of the party, everyone else was busy building a life. Watch the eyes, not Stifler's eyes, but the eyes of the people around him. In the first movie, when Stifler enters a room, the eyes light up. There is anticipation. Chaos is about to happen, and everyone wants a front row seat. But fast forward. Look at the reunion. Look at the moments when the old crew gets back together. When Stifler performs his usual routine, the insults, the aggression, the sexual bravado, watch the eyes of his friends. They don't light up anymore. They shift. They look down. They look at each other with a mixture of nostalgia and embarrassment. There is a polite laughter, the kind you give to a child who tells a joke you've heard 1,000 times. It's a micro moment of disconnection. Stifler thinks he is connecting. He thinks he is bringing the group back together. But the group has moved to a frequency he cannot hear. He is broadcasting on an analog signal in a digital world. He laughs loud, waiting for the echo, but the room absorbs the sound. That split second, where the punchline lands in a void, is where the loneliness lives. It is easy to label this as stupidity. It is easy to say that the boy simply refuses to grow up because he is lazy or selfish. But that is a superficial reading. The refusal to become a man is rarely about laziness. It is almost always about fear. The boy knows how to be a boy. He knows the rules of that game. He knows that if he is loud, he gets attention. He knows that if he breaks something, he will be scolded, but he will be seen. The world of men is terrifyingly quiet. It requires a kind of internal validation that the boy has never developed. To leave the persona behind feels like a death. If Stifler stops being Stifler, who is he? If he stops being the Stiffmeister, is he just a lonely guy with a generic job and no real connections? Clinging to the boy is a survival mechanism. It is an attempt to freeze time in the last moment where you felt truly successful, truly loved, and truly understood. It's not that he doesn't want to move forward, it's that he is terrified that if he steps forward, he will disappear completely. You see this pattern ripple out beyond the parties. You see it in relationships. The boy treats intimacy like a conquest because that is the only currency he understands. He collects stories, not partners. He looks for the high score, not the connection. And for a while this works. It works until he meets someone who demands presence, not performance. When the world demands a man, it is asking for someone who can stand still in the storm. The boy only knows how to be the storm. You see it in the workplace, where the boy views authority as a teacher to be rebelled against, rather than a structure to navigate. You see it in conflict, where the boy uses humor as a shield, deflecting seriousness because seriousness feels like a trap. Every aspect of life becomes a stage for a performance that the audience has already walked out of. He is acting out Hamlet to an empty theater, convinced that if he just projects his voice louder, the applause will come back. There is no villain here. The world is not wrong for demanding maturity. Society relies on men who can build, protect, and sustain. It needs reliability. It cannot function on perpetual chaos. And the boy is not a villain for wanting to stay in the light. He is not evil for wanting to preserve the joy and the freedom that defined his youth. The conflict is simply the friction of time. It is the tectonic grinding of two realities that cannot coexist. You cannot be the wild card and the anchor at the same time. You cannot be the prankster and the patriarch. The tragedy is that the boy feels betrayed by the world. He feels that the rules were changed without his consent. I am doing exactly what you loved me for 10 years ago, he thinks. Why do you hate it now? And the world looks back and says, we didn't hate it. We just finished it. Eventually, the mirror becomes the enemy. There is a morning where the hangover doesn't clear up by noon. There is a moment where the face looking back has lines that the personality doesn't match. This is the moment of deep dissonance. It is the feeling of wearing a costume that has become too tight, the seams bursting, the fabric worn thin. You realize that you are an imposter. You are a 30, 40-year-old man masquerading as a teenager, and everyone knows it but you. The laughter you hear isn't with you anymore. It's at the caricature you've become. The loneliness transforms from a vague feeling into a sharp, physical pain in the chest. It's the realization that you are stranded on an island of your own making, and the tide has washed away the bridge. You are the king of a kingdom that no longer exists. Stifler standing alone at the altar, or Stifler sitting in the empty bleachers after the game. It's the image of a mascot after the stadium lights go out. He takes off the heavy head of the costume, sweating, exhausted, and looks at the empty seats. The performance is over. The silence is absolute. And in that silence, he has to decide. Does he put the head back on for the janitor? Or does he walk out the tunnel as just a person? The world will keep turning. It will keep demanding men. It will keep asking for fathers, for leaders, for partners who can hold the weight of reality. The boy can stay. He is allowed to stay, but he must accept that the room will get emptier. The cheers will get quieter. And eventually the only sound left will be the echo of his own voice, telling stories about a time that everyone else has already forgotten.